Hey, I'm Jason, and welcome to another Marvel Legendary unboxing. This is for Guardians of the Galaxy / Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 for the MCU verse. These sets are kind of, I don't know, maybe controversial. They're always hit or miss. They did the Phase 1 big box set, and then the only other movie or I guess photogenic, as they sometimes call it, one they've done with Spider-Man Homecoming. With Spider-Man Homecoming and this one are both really cool because they're all brand new cards. They added new characters, some new concepts that weren't in some of the other sets, which then later could be transferred over. So they basically treated them as any other expansion. The Phase 1 box set is sort of iffy because lots of it was just functional reprints of the original stuff, where it was like Hawkeye and Captain America, like all the main heroes were the exact same, just with new artwork, which I get, not 100% reinventing the wheel for a starter set. You're just taking starter set cards. But they did add some new characters and some new concepts in there as well, which is still cool. I wish they'd make more of these so I could actually play, so you guys could play more of a game. Like, I wish they hit everything. Like, even if they had to do, like, one of these small boxes every year. Like, if they're gonna release four sets every year, if one of the four would be one of these, like, that'd be cool. Or every other year release, like, one big box set that's like, here's Phase 2 and here's like a bunch of new characters. Although then it's harder, like, when you do a bigger set, it would be harder to make some really cool, spread the keywords out as much. But yeah, let's jump into this. So this is actually really cool. So it's a full set, 5 heroes, 2 masterminds, villain group, rule sheet, 100 playable cards. This has a lot of stuff in it. So of course we're going to get Guardian of the Galaxy team, because we're playing the Guardians of the Galaxy. And this crosses over both movies, so we get different versions of each character: Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket, Groot, Mantis. And we're going to fight off against Ronin from the first movie and Eagle from the second movie. So they have, one of the new things they did in here is a higher variety of cards. Because also right below it we're doing divided cards. Which is kind of why they did this. So instead you have 1 copy of a rare, which you usually have. Then you have 2 copies of the 2 uncommons, and 3 copies of 3 commons. So it's 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and 3. So you're getting less of each. So instead of 1, 3, 5, and 5, now you're getting 2 uncommons, and 3 commons. So you're getting a bigger variety of cards. So this, I like this. I like getting more different cards instead of a ton of the same cards. So it's kind of fun to me. So I wouldn't even be terribly mad if they went this route from now on. They did this in the New Mutant set? No. One of the more recent X-Men sets. Messiah Complex did this because they had cards that involved a clone thing, so you had to find different cards. They made it so you have more copies of those cards for that reason. And I think they did it in here because they have a lot of divided cards. So divided cards come back. They're going to be cards that have 2 halves, so they look like extra little cards. So if I can find one here just to show off quick. So they're going to look like 2 small halves of a card. So for all intents and purposes, while it's in your hand, deck, discard pile, it's treated as both of those cards. So if it asks for one color, you can search for either color, either cost, any symbol on the card. Once it's played, though, you decide which of the halves it is, and then it's only considered to be that half as you play it. So if it's a covert leadership card, you play it as the covert side. You can't use any of this stuff on the leadership side. You can't use its cost, that you play the leadership card, any of that stuff for points of it. We have artifacts, which have been making a huge hit recently in this game. They were debuted in the original Guardian set, so it makes sense they come back here. But then they're in the Asgard set, the Heroes of Asgard set, which is awesome. They brought that back, which kind of also ties into, like, you know, Thor and some of them guys joining up with Guardian characters at times. But then they added it in the Doctor Strange set, which just came out. So now we're revisiting it again. So it went from a long period of time with no other artifacts to now we have a ton of artifacts in different sets that will interact with each other. And basically, artifacts are cards that once you play them, they stay in play, and they give you bonuses. And there's several versions we have. So in this one, we have triggered artifacts. So some of them will come into play, and they'll just be like, hey, as long as this is out, you get one extra, you know, sword, or one extra, you know, attack every turn, or you get one extra recruit every turn. And then now they have triggered ones, which are going to say stuff like, hey, if you draw a card, you get to do this. So every time you draw a card, it's going to kick off more than once, which is just a one-time effect. Doctor Strange had some of the stuff like this. Once per turn, this copy doesn't stay in play as an artifact. The legendary yellow card from the 2000 cannot copy any artifacts in this set. Interesting. Card lets you copy a triggered artifact or play a copy of it, then you can use that triggered artifact's ability to throw the artifact once per turn, artifact or ritual artifacts. So throwing artifacts were from... Oh, I guess we did have a second set, because we had Fear itself, and then we also had Asgard. And then ritual artifacts were from Doctor Strange, which basically they didn't do anything when they came into play unless you met a condition, then they do stuff. Cool. Then we also have Villainous Weapons, which were starting the Heroes of Asgard, which are villains that have cards. So when they play, instead of just sitting out as a regular villain, they immediately equip to another villain, give them bonuses, but then lots of them, once you beat them, you can gain that card, so it's kind of like gaining a hero, which is really cool. We'll look at a bunch of those. Then we also have Excessive Violence from Deadpool and Venom. So these are heroes that basically, if you spend at least one extra attack to defeat a villain or mastermind, you get to do all of the excessive violence played. So if you have 3 cards that have it, you want to play all 3 of them, then attack something, and then as long as you have at least 1 more damage than what requires to defeat them, you get to do all the abilities. But it only works then. So if you played 2 of your cards, attack something, trigger excessive violence, and then something lets you play the 3rd card, or something lets you draw an extra card with it, you don't get that unless you attack a second time. So it's kind of cool there. Then we also have Excessive Kindness, which is the exact opposite of that. Kind of, you get the same ability as long as you spend 1 or more extra recruit. So that's a new version of that. Then we have Command, which is a recurring from, I don't remember what set this came out in, which says a villain commands their group and gets these abilities as long as the leftmost villain in that group is in the city. So as long as it's farther towards the exit, they give bonuses to all their different troops, which is really cool. And then it just says, related characters in a Guardians set. Original Guardians has set from 2014 different cards and gameplays, includes different versions of these. And Into the Mastermind also has different versions of some of these in Guardians, and Legendary Venom has a Venom Rocket. So yeah, you can play all of them and mix and match them, of course. Now, if you only want to play cinematic, you only got a couple sets to choose from, but if you don't care about mixing and matching, this set will give you a lot more to offer. Alright, so let's hop in and see what we got. Yeah, some people might be like, no, I can't mix the real world with the comic book world. I'm personally like, you know, there's enough comic book stuff, I'm not worried about that if I want to skip this. But the fact is they have new artwork. If they would have just done like they did in the Phase 1 set, where they just reprinted versions of the cards, like, even when they had some of the new villains, they're like, oh, instead of like enemies of Asgard, they changed like Ymir, like it was still the Ymir, but then they changed like one of the other cards into like Hawkeye, like being controlled by Loki essentially. It's like, okay, that's cool. You just changed the name of the card, but the effects all stayed the same. Like, for purpose of playing wise, don't care. But then they added brand new cards like new Steam Twists, and they added like Ironmonger. This is the same thing. These just would have been like movie reprints, like with pictures of the other characters. I kind of like, I would buy it as a collector, but like I could see people skipping it for that reason. But since there's brand new stuff, hey, who cares what the pictures look like? And then they'll have the big giant logo on there showing what it's from. Only kind of weird thing about these. So we have Star-Lord. We're going to start with a tech card called Starship Sensors, and we got 2 copies of that. It's a triggered artifact. So the first time you play an artifact each turn, including this one, you get +1 star. So artifacts are kind of hit or miss on how good they are, because only costs 2. You play this, it's going to be, at bare minimum, it's going to be 1 star, which isn't terrible. But you really need to play a bunch more artifacts to get this. So you don't play a artifact heavy set, or at least 2 characters that have artifacts, the artifact cards become a lot weaker. If you're playing one of the Guardian, or any of the previous name sets I've said that have these, you mix and match it so every character's artifacts. The artifacts are very powerful. But if I only take one character with artifacts, they're going to be harder to find, and this like clearly isn't going to trigger off as much. But once I play it, it stays out, and then every time I play a new artifact, I'll get an extra bonus. Ooh, sorry, we have 3 copies of that. We also have 3 copies of Borrowed Nova Blaster, which is a ranged triggered artifact. The first time you play an artifact each turn, including this one, you get +1 attack. So the same idea. I love this. So they did this as it almost was a small sub theme, which is the borrowed cards. Because I think Gamora has one too. I was really hoping they did one for all the different Guardians, if everyone has a borrowed weapon. But they didn't. Alright, we have 3 copies of Expandable Helmet. Or Star-Lord's helmet. Triggered artifact. The first time you play an artifact each turn, including this one, draw a card. Because it's kind of Star-Lord's gimmick. You play cards first, and then every time you add more stuff on, he just gets more and more powerful. So those are our 3 commons. Our 2 uncommons we're going to start with. I'm going to set these off to the side so we have 2 copies of Give and Takes. This is one of our split cards. So if we are playing So if we're playing the Give side, which has Star-Lord, or the Take side, which has Yondu. So this card is currently treated, anytime it's in your hand deck, as a Covert or a range card, as a Star-Lord or a Yondu card. 4 costs, it can count as, 2 for stars or 2 for slashes. So you have lots of different options there. So it says, and the costs are always going to be the same. But here we have, so if we do Give, we have +2. Recruit, you may discard an artifact you control to gain +1 star. So why would you want to discard these? Like, hey, maybe you played, like, even just Star-Lord here. Maybe you played the one for recruiting, but like, maybe now you don't need as much recruit every turn. Or maybe you don't need to worry about attacking for some reason. You might want to just discard one of them, get it back in your hand, so you can replay and trigger a bunch more of those effects more often. Because also, if you play all of his where they stay out, they'll trigger, but you're going to run out of cards to keep playing. So you might have to essentially return a bunch to your hand, so that way you can replay them all and gain all them bonuses en masse again. And then Take with Yondu is if you played another Guardian card, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an artifact, draw it. Alright. Then our next one is 2 copies of Don't Need That Stuff. It says strength card. It says you may discard an artifact you control to gain +1 attack. So this might be good for later in the game. Again, you can get them back into your hand, but he also lets you, just get a big bonus whenever you might need it. And then his final card, his ultimate, is the Hadron Enforcer, which is a ranged and triggered artifact. The first time you play an artifact each turn, including this one, you get +3. So 8 cost for 3 is super terrible. But the fact is, again, you're playing with a lot of these artifacts. You could potentially do it. This could be super great, because if you have 5 cards in your hand and you could somehow even play 3 of them were artifacts, that's an extra 9 if this was already out. But I think this kind of has to work with his give and take ability, where you need to be, and hopefully some of the other Guardians have ways of returning stuff. Because if you can't, you keep playing all your triggered artifacts and they just sit out, or you play too many of them, they stay on the table and they don't have a way of getting back to your hand, they're gonna over time become weaker and weaker, because eventually you're gonna have like 10 artifacts out and you're not gonna have any bonuses to gain from them. But as long as you can keep recycling them, and if you kind of plan it right, you can get some good bonuses. Alright, so we have Gamora. So we have 3 copies of Sharpened Blades. So this is Covert. So to recruit, if you control an artifact, draw a card. 3 copies of Resourceful Fugitive. To play this, you must put a card from your hand at the bottom of your deck. Draw 2 cards. Interesting. Nice recycle effect. You don't see them too often. But yeah, I have 2 starter cards in my hand. Just you can put one at the bottom of your deck to get 2 extra better cards. We have 3 copies of Retractable Sword. Trigger artifact. Whenever you would draw a card during your turn, you get +1 attack. So she focused on getting that drawing. That last card will let you draw 2, so you get you bonuses. A lot easier to draw cards versus Star-Lord requires you to keep playing more and more artifacts. Hers getting some card draw, you can definitely trigger this a lot of other abilities. She is going to get 2 copies of a split card. Forgive and Resent. So this is Gamora and Nebula. So Covert or Instinct. So Covert, Forgive is 1 recruit. If you play another Covert, draw a card. So again, focusing on that card drawing aspect. And then Resent is an Instinct. If you play another Instinct, you get +1 attack. So, 2 costs for 1 attack or 1 star isn't terrible, with the option of potentially having either an extra card draw or an extra attack. Gives you a little bit of variety. Her other uncommon one is Stolen Necroblast. So here's a second stolen card, which is arranged. And if you drew at least 2 cards this turn, you may KO a card from your hand or discard pile. Ooh, so 6 for 3 is okay, but drawing cards and then be able to KO some of your starter cards is actually very nice. And yeah, drawing cards isn't hard to have any effect to draw cards. And then her rare card is the Guardians Escape. If you drew at least 2 cards this turn, you get +2 attack, otherwise that's +5. So 7 for 5 again, not bad. Drawing at least 2 cards, you get +2. So even if you only trigger that once, a 7 for 7 damage is pretty decent. Getting to draw 4 cards in a turn might be pushing it, but if you do, it's 9 attack, which is definitely powerful. Not a game-breaking card, but not bad at all. I don't think they want to go too hard with that drawing, because if you hit a bunch of draw cards right in a row, especially with things like sidekicks, that could really be kind of tricky. Alright, who do we have up next? We're going to look at our good old buddy Drax. Drax the Destroyer. Nothing goes over my head. 3 copies of this for Instinct. Who of course has excessive violence. 2 attack. You have the top 2 cards of your deck, discard any number of them, and put the rest back in any order. So if you do extra damage, you get to kind of stack your deck, which is really fun. It's a neat way to also play with excessive violence. You do extra damage, you get to kind of maybe set up for your next turn. We have 3 copies of Prison Riot, which is another strength card. So 5 cost. Excessive violence, you get 2 recruit. So it just has 3 attack. And then if you do that extra attack, you also get some extra recruit. I like these effects with him so far, with the excessive violence being like the opposite. They do not ever call me a thesaurus. That is funny. Alright, Drax has some interesting split cards. So he gets some with the Nova Core. It's like, I'm not 100% sure why he gets them. I get they wanted a divided card with each one, but I'm not really sure why he got them or why this particular character. But we have Drax and we have Iron Array. So I am invisible versus Xandar is invincible. So we have Drax's card as an instinct. Gives you 2 attack, and says excessive violence. Reveal the top card of your deck. If you get strength or instinct, draw it. Yeah, so this is definitely fun because it would work. It would work with some of Gamora's cards because she has a couple of instinct cards in there as well. I don't think she had any strength cards, but it would combine well with her stuff. You get to draw a card as well. That would help you out. And then we have the tech version for Xandar's Invincible, which gives you 2 recruit if there are no villains in the city, plus 1 star. That one's okay. I don't really like that as much because it's so hard to empty the city out. And for only 1 recruit point, it's not that great. Like maybe early on or every once in a while it's going to trigger, but more often than not you're just going to get that 2 recruit. Alright, our uncommons are dual knives. So strength, triggered artifact. When you play another strength or instinct card, you get +1 attack. Yes, this one just requires you to play a specific card type, which isn't hard if you plan your deck. Die Spaceship. Oh, I love Drax's quotes. 2 copies of this. Since we get another one with a Nova character, which notably neither of them had a class type or a team. So remove his spine and also illegal. So the play and the thing with the story is really fun. But it's also like it breaks the mold of the split cards, and the other one even kind of pushes it, where usually it's like give, take, forgive, resent. They're sort of like opposites. Remove his spine and also illegal aren't opposite phrases. The thing is, I'm invisible versus Xandar is invincible is sort of a stretch on that, because they're not opposites, but I see what they're kind of going for. But, you're working with a limited space, because your regular Marvel, you can make up anything you want. These have to stick with the limitations of what's in the movie. Alright, so Drax's strength card gives you 3 attack, excessive violence. Reveal the top card of your deck, you may KO it. So, yeah, Drax really likes to be able to play around with what's in his deck, which is very interesting, but it makes sense, because he's supposed, he's supposed to be like brutally efficient, I guess would make sense. You know, he kind of not necessarily a plan ahead person, but like he knows what he's capable of. I think if you look at it that way. And then Rohan Gay has Instinct, and he has 3 Recruit, and if you play another Instinct, you get another Recruit. Which wouldn't be hard in this set, you know, playing a color to get an extra one. So not bad at all. It's a little high 6 for those little effects, but because it's a split card, I'll allow it. And then our final one is we have Revenge for My Family. Strength card. Double the attack you have. Excessive violence. You may kill a villain from your victory pile to do its fight effect. Ooh, that is fun. So yeah, it doesn't, in itself, doesn't do anything. So yeah, if you have a crappy hand, this card might be terrible. But the fact is you can double it, so like, even if you take out like a 3-cost henchman, you can still do the KO effect from a villain, which might be more than worth, 8 easily. Doesn't let you redo anything from a Mastermind, but it does a villain, which could be, something again from a henchman, which is like extra recruit point or KO a card. It could be, something like draw a card or, a ton of different other stuff. Some of them will have gain a spot in the HQ or something like that. So it's actually really fun. Not 100% sure how that works thematically, but that's alright. Alright, so rounding out our next part of the original task is Rocket and Groot, which has a bunch of interesting stuff. So we start with Baby Groot card, which is a Rocket and Groot card. 3 copies of this. Instinct, Excessive Kindness, Rescue a Bystander. So if you buy something, spend an extra point, get a bystander. If you're just playing regular and you don't have any special bystanders, it's not as great unless you have other cards that work on rescuing bystanders, or you're trying to win victory points and you're playing competitively. Then that's definitely good. Otherwise it's but I always play with all my special bystanders, so gaining extra bystanders is actually kind of fun because I get extra abilities from it. Which I'm kind of surprised I didn't put any extra ones in here. That would have been kind of neat. So we do have a common split card. So we have Passion and Compassion. So this is a Rocket / Baby Groot card. So Rocket's Passion is a tech which has excessive violence to draw a card, which makes sense for Rocket. Drawing extra cards is nice, plus that works again well with Drax. He uses excessive violence a lot too. And then Compassion is we're going to get Excessive Kindness, lets us draw a card. Which, yeah, both of these, again, this is showing how all the Guardians work together as a team. Just looking at this card is Rocket and Drax can use Excessive Violence to see what's on top of the deck, kind of play around with that. And then use those abilities to draw cards so you can kind of pick what you want to draw, so that your draw actually is really effective. And then Gamora has a lot of stuff that kick off for drawing a card, so that could definitely be helpful. And then with that, you can also maybe get more artifacts to help out Star-Lord, so you can kind of play around and get some of them. And then the Excessive Kindness, which I believe is just on Groot and Mantis is our other character, aren't going to kick off as often, but definitely they could work well for what they do. Our other comment is another split, so this one is also a Rocket and Baby Groot. We have Don't Press This Button and Press This Button, which is, a fun back and forth there. So Rocket's ranged is +2 attack. If you play another range, you get +1 attack. And Baby Groot's is a tech. It says a recruit. Says you play a tech, you may KO a card from your hand or discard pile. KOing stuff is very helpful, having more instances of that. On a split card's actually very nice as well, because it gets you some different options to do it. Hey, I don't need to, or I don't have attack, then you can at least gain some extra attack. I like it. Our first uncommon rarity would be Gravity Mines. So we have a triggered artifact. Whenever you use excessive violence, you draw a card. This should be fun to play with, mixed with the other sets like Deadpool and that, which also have excessive violence. Or the Venom set, just because enemies can stay down and you have more instances you can trigger this. So if you threw this particular Groot, or Rocket and Groot, in with one of them other sets, it would kick off a lot more. What goes up must come down to be slammed on the ground repeatedly. That's funny. Then our other one is we have regular Groots. We have regular Rocket, regular Groot. So they have Gamora has hers against the wall, and then they kind of did one with him, and they kind of did one with Drax in the prison. It would have been cool if they would have done all three of them when they were doing their lineup, if they just would have used that artwork. Even if, like, what they said at the time didn't fit, it just would have been kind of neat to have, like, that lineup picture. We have Tricky and Simple. So Rocket's tech card for Trickies gives you +2 recruit. If you have at least 5 different card names, you get +2 recruit. So this works really well with the divided cards. And then Groot is just a strength card, which gives you +3 attack. Which this particular Rocket and Groot really needs, because they don't have a lot of great attack for all the excessive violence. And then our last one for them is We Are Groot. 7 cost strength card. Reveal your hand, get +1 for each different card name you had. Each divided card has 2 different card names. Ooh, so yeah, you're playing this as divided. If you got 5 divided in your hand, that's 10. It's 10 attack right there. Even if you only have 2 of them, that's still 4 attack. Which, again, isn't super awesome if you only got 4, but if you have more than... If you had a hand card of 5, and this is one of the 5, so you have 4 other cards, and 2 of them were divided, so you could play this, you could get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards out of it, so not bad. But if you have lots of this other stuff this set likes to do is draw cards, so in itself, just looking at it with Rocket and Groot, this isn't going to be super awesome. I mean, although he does have 3 different divided cards, so you're just collecting Rocket and Groot cards, you'd have a high opportunity of having, maybe 3 of these, which would be 6. It should be 7 if you had a 4th card. But yeah, combine this with some of the other ones, plus the drawing cards. Could be very good. I do like this, so reveal your hand, though. It's each card in your hand. So you have to play this first, versus playing a bunch of other stuff. But now imagine playing this, and then playing Drax's card. Like, getting 2 ultimates is very difficult and a pain in the ass. But now if you could do that, that'd be pretty crazy. Like, if you already had 5, then you could double it. But yeah, that's actually pretty cool. Alright, then our last hero is Mantis. So we got 3 copies of Empathic Bond. So this is a range with excessive kindness. Put the hero you recruited this way on top of your deck. Telepath no thoughts, empath feel feelings, emotions. Ooh, I really like that though. I like the ability to put stuff on top of your deck. I'm going to call this the Aquaman ability, because the DC deck building game, which came out before the Marvel one, that was basically Aquaman's ability. You could buy cards, you had the option of putting the cards you bought on top of your deck. So personally for me, every time I see it, I just call it the Aquaman ability. But yeah, I like that, getting the option to do that. Alright, then this is a fun split card. We have Mantis and Ego, which have Selfless and Selfish. Mantis's instinct has 2 recruit. If you play a recruit, draw a card, and then another player draws a card. Ooh, helping out other players. There's not enough support cards like this. So that's actually really fun. And then Selfish is a range card. No team. Does 2 attack. If you play another range, you draw a card. Another player discards a card. So it's kind of interesting because like you'd almost want to make sure if you're playing cooperatively, make sure you're talking to your team to be like, hey guys, does anyone have something they can afford to discard because I can use this to attack, or I can draw myself an extra card. You don't want to make them discard something, but I think most of the time, unless someone was planning a specific thing, like I can do 5 damage if I play every card. But sometimes they might be like, I can afford to get rid of something. So yeah, that's kind of fun. And then we have 3 copies of Inspire Courage. Instinct with excessive kindness. You get +2 attack. It's just kind of neat. It's like the opposite of the other, the excessive violence, where instead of gaining recruit bonuses, these ones are getting attack bonuses. We have 2 of the uncommons. We have Sleep, which is covert. Excessive kindness. You may KO one of your cards. I like that every one of her cards has excessive kindness, except for the split card, because that'll help trigger that off a lot more. And then again, this is one of the effects like I hope they include in some other set later on, just because in that way it'll make this more of an effective character. Otherwise, by itself, great. If you're just buying Mantis cards, this should work really well. Instead, she mainly is the only one that has it, other than a couple Baby Groot cards. You could put her in a different set, and this would still work very well for what it does. But being that there's only those 2, outside of this set, it's also not going to be as great. You may KO one of your cards, so it's obviously a play around with what you can do. Then she has 2 copies of Emotional Wave, which is a range. Excessive kindness, you get attack equal to the total of all printed attack and recruit of heroes you recruited this way. Ooh, interesting. So that could be either very good or very bad. Does you 3 recruit, you spend it, as long as you spend over what you need. You get total attack equal to the total printed. Yes, if you get some good ones. And now, like, if I recruited one of these guys, I would get 4, because that's 2 star and 2 attack. So with all the divided cards, this guy should be pretty powerful. Then her ultimate is an instant Discover the Dead. Excessive kindness. You get plus attack equal to the cost of the hero you recruited this way. And +2 attack. That doesn't seem as nearly as good. You get plus equal to the cost of the hero recruited this way. Oh, to the cost. Okay, so the other one's just the printed effect, which printed can sometimes be 0, or, you know, it could be, you could have a divided card that has +0s on it. This one gets equal to the amount that you spent. Yeah, so again, if we just look at this in the bubble of by itself, you spend 7, you get 2 attack. That's terrible. But if you buy anything else, and you spent over, you can potentially get more. So I mean, commonly you might say you can buy like a 4 or 5 cost card, which would up this to 6 or 7, which isn't terrible. I mean, if you only, worst case is, hey, I can only buy a quick 1 or 2, or I buy like a 2 or 3 cost card. You know, at most you can always buy the 3 cost, like Maria Hill sitting on the side, or like a Pet Avenger or something. So at least you could get +3 if you up this to 5. 5 attack for 7's not bad. But yeah, if you guys can buy like, you know, one of the big ultimates with this, that'd be cool. The only thing that would have been neater with this, and I get why it wouldn't work because of her abilities, is this would have been kind of neat as like an artifact. If you could gain that bonus once you recruit something, you can gain a bonus for one recruit. Interesting. Alright, so let's look at some of our villains here. So we're going to start with one of our villain groups. We have the Ravagers. Normally I would do the Mastermind and the villain, but the Ego doesn't he doesn't go with the Ravagers. So we're going to kind of look at that separately. So the Ravagers kind of just float off by themselves, which makes sense. They'll work for whoever wants to hire them. So we have Death. Gets +2 attack while he commands the Ravagers. Ambush. Swap Death with the leftmost Ravager in the city, and fight if Death was commanding the Ravagers. Draw a card. So that's kind of cool. So he starts off, he's just a 3, which isn't very hard to beat. But if he's the leftmost guy, which when he comes in he will be, he goes up to 5. So unless you have cards that you swap people around, which none of these characters do, these guys are going to get a little bit harder. But the problem with the Ravagers is they're always fighting for command. So when Tulk comes into play, he's going to supersede Gelf, and he's going to become the most. Otherwise, all his abilities are the same, so he becomes a 5. Of course, Kraglin Oba Frontier? He comes in, he's 4, but he's also going to try and command them, so he's going to jump to the front. I like that's how all their abilities. So his, I guess his commanding might be ability. His is, if he was commanding, KO one of your heroes, and his was draw 2 cards. But yeah, that's kind of a fun thing. So every time one of these guys comes into play, they take over, and immediately they become more powerful. Everyone else becomes weaker. We have Taserface, of course, who has +4 and +2. And if he was commanding when you fight him, you get +2 recruit. And then what would the Ravagers be without Yandu Uganda? Was 5, he gets +2, you may swap him, and if he is commanding, K up to 2 of your heroes. It's kind of neat because some of their effects are good, and some are bad. And even KOing is not necessarily bad because it could get rid of your starter cards. But if you, depending on what you have, you might also think, well, I'm not going to beat him this turn. But at least that's an option, right? You can choose to defeat. I'm not going to defeat him because I can't afford to lose the cards I have. Then the other 3 cards we get are the Villainous Weapons. So when this comes into play, it says ambush play another card from the villain deck. So this is Stabbing Blade. So this gets +2. So if I have Yandu out and this card comes up next, instead of becoming a separate villain, it now attaches to Yandu, gives him +2. So he would be 5. So he'd be a 7 cost if he didn't already have his 2, which could be 8, 9 potentially. Then if you defeat that character, you get this as an artifact card in your deck. Which, this is what makes something like Star-Lord's cards a lot better, is playing with these villainous artifacts, because they're going to trigger a lot more, because you're going to have all these extra options of villainous weapons you can get as well. It's not just whatever you purchase, but you can get some from villains. Then you play a strength or instant card, you may gain +2 if you do shuffle this into the villain deck. This is kind of neat. So you play it, and then you play one of them cards, you can gain an extra bonus, but then you lose this card. But this would work well with Drax. We have Ravagers Starship Elector. Eclector? If a Ravager captures this, that Ravager swaps spaces with the leftmost Ravager in this city, so he gets his commanding ability. Because it always triggers whoever's closest to the thing, to the deck. Trigger artifact, whenever you play a tech card, gain +1 attack. And you're just playing attack, so that's actually pretty cool. Works well with, probably Groot or Rocket. And then, of course, we have the Yaka Arrow. Villainous Weapon Ambush. If Yandu is in the city, he captures this If he is in any player's victory pile, he enters an empty city space, then captures this. Neat. So he his arrow calls him. And then a trigger artifact can be played a covert or a range, get +1. So that's kind of neat. So the one gets you for playing tech, the other one gets you for playing covert or range. The third one gets you an extra bonus if you're playing strength or instinct, but you have to return it. Neat. Definitely fun there. Alright. Then let's look at a Mastermind. We have Ronan the Accuser. He always leads the followers of Ronan. Master Strike. Each player discards a card at random. Ronan captures strikes as a Necrocraft ship. Villainous Weapons that give +1. Oh, okay. As a Necro ship, Villainous Weapon. It's the same line. That gives +1 attack. When you gain a Necro ship, it becomes a triggered artifact that says whenever a Master Strike is completed, draw a card. Okay, so that's kind of cool. So this is a lot to look at. So each player discards a card at random, and then he captures this strike. So the strike becomes a Necro ship craft, which is a Villainous Weapon, which gives him a bonus. But then also, if you beat his card, you gain a triggered artifact that says whenever a Master Strike is completed, draw a card. So he gained all the bonuses, but every time you beat him, he loses them, and you gain an extra thing. So if a Master Strike is completed, draw a card. So I wonder if that only works for him then. So maybe you can't gain this Villainous Weapon. But yeah, you have triggered artifact. Interesting. Alright, so his tactics are neat because they're all trigger or Villainous Weapons. So you have the Cosmorod Warhammer. KO one of your heroes, rescue 2 bystanders, Rowan captures this card as a Villainous Weapon. And then triggered artifact, whenever you recruit a hero from the HQ, you get +2 attack. Ancient Kree Armor. KO one of your heroes, rescue 2 bystanders, he captures. So those might all be the same. And then triggered artifact. When you gain the first wound in any turn, you may KO it. Ooh, so the first card in here that specifies wounds. Interesting. You don't have a lot of those. Hood of the Accuser. KO one of your heroes, rescue 2 bystanders, he captures this. Triggered artifact, whenever a Master Strike is complete, you may KO one of your cards. May is the key word there. And then Ronan's Throne. KO one of your heroes, rescue 2 bystanders, captures a Villainous Weapon. And triggered artifact, whenever a Steam quest is complete, draw 2 cards. That's actually kind of fun. I like the fact that they're like, some of these triggered artifacts play off of what the villain deck does. Like, oh, if you get a Master Strike or you get a Steam, then these cards trigger instead of just being your stuff. Alright, so then the followers of Ronin villain group has the Exelon Monks. Exelon Monks get +2 attack when another villain is commanding the followers of Ronin. Fight KO one of your heroes. So, yeah, normally a 3, but you can get up to 5. Now, this is kind of opposite of Ravagers. Ravagers are always fighting for command, and then makes them the most powerful. This guy's looking for someone to lead him. So another villain is commanding the followers of Ronin. They gain bonuses. So then we have the Excellent Attendants, get +2 while another villain is commanding the followers of Ronin. Reveal the top card of the villain deck if a villain enters an empty city space. So he's going to bring out more guys. We have Sakari Mercenaries, which is interesting, because Sakari is where the Hulk was. So it's kind of interesting. Sakari Mercenaries get +2 while another villain is commanding the followers of Ronin. Ambush, if another villain is commanding the followers of Ronin, each player gains a wound. So you get some guys that are going to command them. We have Korath the Pursuer. He's +2 while he commands the powers of Ronin. Ambush. Each player may draw a card. For each player that did reveal a card from the villain deck, play the followers of Ronin card from among the cards revealed this way. Put the rest back in any order. Same effect. Interesting. That's a neat ambush effect. Plus, now also look at this with Drax's ultimate card, which lets you read the fight ability. This could definitely be a great way for everyone to get cards. And then we have Nebula. He gets +2 while she commands. And then the other guys all gain bonuses if one of these two are commanding. Ambush captures a villainous weapon from another villain in the city. Or captures an artifact from the player they control as villainous weapon. If it doesn't already have villainous weapon, it gives a +2 bonus. Okay, that's kind of cool. Just steals an item. Then we're going to get some artifacts to go with that. So we have the Orb. Villainous weapon. Put all the heroes from the HQ on the bottom of the hero deck. And then triggered artifact. When you fight a Mastermind, take another turn after this one. Don't play card from the villain deck at the start of that turn. This ability is only be used once per game. Oh, that's cool. Only be used once, but just be able to take that extra turn right away. That could be very helpful. The Dark Aster Flagship. Villainous Weapon. Ambush. If a follower of Ronin captures this, each player gains a wound. And then triggered artifact may be defeat a villain +1 recruit. And then Korath's Disruptor Rifle. Ambush. If Korath is in the city, he captures this and triggered artifact. Whenever you play a card that costs 6 or more, you get +1. That's cool. That definitely helps them play that helper someone. I like the Villainous Weapons. Alright, so our final Mastermind, or our second one, is Ego the Living Planet. So this is kind of neat, because this kind of plays on the comic book Ego with that picture. Where it's actually the full planet. So Ego gets +1 for each city space. When there are no more city spaces, good wins. Okay, so he starts out as an 8 cost, because there's 5 city spaces, and then he gets, as you defeat these, as you eliminate city spaces, he gets weaker. So it's kind of a neat effect. Leads any villain group plus an additional villain group, even for 1 player. So he'll lead any 2 groups. Basically doesn't care who he commands. And then Master Strike. Create an extra city space on the left side of the city. If there are at least 3 villains in the city, each player gains a wound. Play another card from the villain deck. Oh, that's cool, because there's 5 Master Strikes. So you could potentially, if you're not getting rid of city spaces, somehow, which this way it doesn't say there's any way, presumably, to get rid of them. So he's going to start, he has 3, he's going to have up to 5, so he's going to be an 8 cost to beat. But you could potentially get all 5 Master Strikes, which would make him another, 13? Oh, that's crazy. Alright, so his tactics are, until everything is me. Fight, rescue 3 bystanders, destroy the leftmost city space. There we go. Any villain there escapes, shuffle this tactic back into Ego's tactics. Okay, so this will keep happening. Cover all that exists. You may KO one of your heroes. Choose a henchman from any victory pile to enter the city. Destroy the leftmost city space. Any villain there escapes. Shuffle the tactic back into Ego's tactics. Oh, so he's gonna keep recycling these, and then that's kind of cool. Plus, it's also, so there's no victory points in any of these either. What's also neat about this is it's always the leftmost space, so you always have a chance to keep that empty. I always try and keep that one empty no matter what. This expansion is my purpose. +1 for each empty city space. destroy the leftmost space. Any villain that escapes, shuffle this tactic into the deck. What's going to make these guys escape a lot? He's going to trigger a lot of escape effects, which don't usually happen. And I'm a Celestial Sweetheart. When you draw a new hand of cards at the end of this turn, draw 2 extra cards, destroy the leftmost city space. Villain escapes. So at least if you know that that's what's going to happen, like you've read these beforehand, and you know that every time you beat him, you're going to have to destroy that leftmost space, you're going to want to basically, like, okay, so before I take him out, can I deal with their escaping? Because that destroys cards in your HQ, and they might have an escape effect. So you might have to just, I can beat him, but I have to wait, otherwise I'm going to trigger that effect. Alright, so then we have some schemes. So, we're going to look at some Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We have Provoked the Sovereign War Fleet. Set up 11 twists, add an extra villain group. So now imagine playing this right there with Egos. Now you have 2 extra villain groups with that. Twist, this enters the city as a +2 attack Sovereign Omnicraft villain worth 1 VP. Fight, you get +1 star. Each player shuffles all twists from their victory piles back into the villain deck. Play another card from the villain deck. When 3 Omnicraft escape. Yeah, so don't play this with Ego. Having an extra villain group would already be a lot of extra cards, having 2 of them. Plus, if an Omnicraft escape, and when his tactics, every time you destroy him, they delete that city, you really have to watch what you do. Although 2 isn't much. But each player shuffles all twists from their victory piles back into the villain deck. So they're going to keep doing that, and they're going to keep adding more villains. Cool. We have Unleash the Obelisk Space Monster. 9 twists. Twist 1 through 8. Put this twist next to the scheme as an Obelisk Tentacle. Villain worth 4 BP. It captures a non-gray hero from your discard pile. Its attack is +3 the cost of that hero. It has Fight. KO one of your gray heroes. A player of choice gains the captured hero. And then +2 players. The player on your right plays a tentacle from their victory pile, capturing from them. And then twist 9, replay all defeated tentacles and win when there are 5 tentacles. Oh, this is interesting. So you gotta keep trying to kill all these tentacles so there's not too many of them. But when you fight one, you have to KO one of your gray heroes, and then the player gains your capture hero. And then if you have 2 or more players, the player on your right plays a tentacle from their victory pile, capturing from them. So even when you defeat one, then another one is going to come into play. As long as someone on the right. So basically you almost want to be like, have like 1 or 2 players opposite be taking these out. Interesting. We have Inescapable Kylon Space Prison. 8 twists, add an extra villain group. Special rule, heroes that can start or enter the HQ are imprisoned face down, can't be recruited, and have a 0 cost. You can spend 1 attack to flip them face up. And then twist, spend this amount this turn for the escape plan. Oh, at the bottom. Okay. Or else after you draw your new hand, gain a wound, then imprison and mix up all heroes in the HQ. Okay, so spend the amount this turn for the escape plan. Or else, after you draw a new hand, gain a wound, then imprison and mix up all heroes in HQ. So here's the start or enter the HQ or imprison face down. They can't be recruited, and you spend 1 to flip each one of them face up. So if you don't spend the amount to gain your twist or your thing, then you have to flip everything face down again, is what I'm guessing happens. So we have the Cornex Battery, which Twists 1 through 3, you have to spend 3 attack to get that. Twists 4 to 5, spend 5 for prison control device. Twist 6, spend 6, recruit that guy's leg. And then 7 is the cassette player. And 8, evil wings. Interesting, it's a fun little mechanic. And then we have Star Wars Awesome Mixtape. 7 twists, use 7 heroes, including at least 1 Guardian hero. Double the normal number of villains and henchmen groups. Use only half the cards from each of those groups randomly and secretly. 1 player, 2 henchmen per group. Neat. So you get extra heroes. Since you have 5, you use 7. And then you actually have to use twice as many villains and henchmen groups, but use half as many. So you're going to get the same amount total, but you're going to have a lot bigger variety, which is, oh, that's actually really cool. KO all heroes from the HQ. Villains in the sewers and bridge space swap spaces. Likewise, villains in the bank and streets. Oh, so again, it's a mixtape, so it's going to mix everything up. So it's kind of neat, too. That can mess with some of them commanding abilities. And then, when there are 32 non-gray heroes in the KO pile, so a lot of cards get KO'd. There's that twist KOs all heroes from the HQ. So at 5 every time, that's, 5 twists would be 25. 6 twists would be 36. So, I'm guessing that 7th twist is just in case for some reason the 6th one didn't KO you. Like, for whatever reason, you reduced the pile a little bit before it happened. No, wait, because 5 times 6 would be 30. Yes, you have to draw a 7, but there are other cards that could KO stuff as well. But by 7, it should end it. So there's a possibility you could have all 7. It'd still be under 32 if you're lucky somehow, maybe return cards, other things. But yeah, that's actually really fun. The only thing I get, because it's for the set, is including the Guardians hero. That thematically makes sense, but I'd almost even play this without that and be like, hey, this is extra heroes, but then having all the mixed groups and having to keep swapping things around just to make a very interesting game mode. Alright, so that is that. Alright, so that was Legendary Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Again, you can mix this with Phase 1, which has a lot of the main Avengers. There's only, 7 of them, instead of the 15 that were in the base game, the original base game. Or the Spider-Man Far From Home set, which had some cool stuff in there as well. Or if you don't mind mixing universes, this will work great. The original Guardians, Heroes of Asgard, which also has artifacts, Doctor Strange, and it's Nightmare something. I don't remember. It's a new set that just came out right before this one. Yeah, that'll work well. It also has artifacts, or even Fear itself, if you don't mind playing with the villain set, which kind of have just different texts, which are a little bit harder to add in, but there's that. Or the excessive violence with Deadpool, or Venom would also work. Yeah, so definitely fun. If you're looking for some new mechanics and different things, a lot of the villainous artifacts are really fun to mix into stuff. Plus some interesting masterminds and Steam twists. So again, I'd say even if you don't, I'm like, I don't really like to mix them, there's a lot of interesting, cool new stuff that I think it would be worth it if you're looking to pick some stuff up. Alright, see you guys next video. Bye.